Good morning, afternoon, folks. We will give it approximately 2 minutes before we get started. One more minute. All right, let's get started while folks are starting to get on. So on behalf of the U.S. Wind Professional Development Committee, thank you for joining us today for our third and final webinar of Professional Development Week 2023. My name is Price Collins. I'm a senior nuclear fuels engineer for Duke Energy and the new-ish chair as of last month of said Professional Development Committee. We are excited to bring a great webinar for you all today on low code, more power, empowering efficiency utilizing the Microsoft Power Platform in nuclear energy. This is, like I said, the final webinar of Professional Development Week with our theme this year of powering the next generation through innovation and efficiency. In a few moments, our speakers will share their insights on how the nuclear industry is leveraging the potential of Microsoft Power Platform, Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate to streamline processes and automate workflows with some real-time examples. Before we get started, we've got some housekeeping and administrative items. So the first thing we're going to go over is a short safety minute because we are nuclear and we always keep safety first and foremost in everything we do. Please be aware of any tripping hazards in your area and mitigate them accordingly. Know your escape exits in the event of an evacuation is necessary. And if you're like me, maybe you're working from home or just a hybrid work schedule in general. So make sure to get up and take regular stretch breaks and just walk around a little bit, get the blood flowing, just get your eyes focused on something else, come back to it, focused and refreshed. If you're attending today as a group, please drop the name of your company and the number of folks that are attending in the group chat, or email us at uswinpd@gmail.com. Nicole, once again, I please ask you to put that in the chat so folks can refer to that. If you have any general questions or any general comments in the webinar, please use the chat feature of that. If you have questions, though, please use the Q&A portion of the Zoom feature, the Zoom platform, and we'll get to that. If you would like to voice your question, please use the raised hand feature, and we will get to you to ask it. So with that, please allow me to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker today is Gilberto Cosme Jr. Gilberto has dedicated over 21 years working with APS and Palo Verde. He began as a senior systems analyst at APS and later transitioned to Palo Verde in 2007. In 2020, he became an innovation consultant with organizational effectiveness, and in January 2023 was promoted to section leader for performance improvement. Gilberto is pursuing a Master of Business Administration and Project Management from Columbia Southern University. During his free time, he works as a supervisor for safe management, where he manages access, conducts security screenings, oversees field security, and leads teams for large events held at State Farm Stadium, which, if I believe correctly, that is where the Arizona Cardinals played. Joining Gilberto is Eric Niemeyer. Eric is a highly accomplished nuclear professional with a distinguished career spanning more than 3 decades at the Palo Verde generating station. Throughout his tenure, Eric has served in numerous leadership and consulting roles across various departments within the organization. In 2007, Eric's remarkable expertise and unwavering commitment played a pivotal role when the station called upon him to help establish the Performance Improvement Department. With over 15 years' experience in root cause analysis, he stands as Palo Verde's principal plant investigator and senior consultant in performance improvement. Beyond his professional pursuits, Eric is an avid hiker and skilled metalwork craftsman. So please help me in joining our new speakers, and Eric and Gilberto. I turn it over to y'all.
Thank you, Bryce, for that introduction. And just wanted to say thank you to Bryce and Tamara, Nicole, and everyone in Women in Nuclear for having us today as we talk about the low code, more power. So just to start the conversation, so at Palo Verde, success relies on our people. And today, because it's almost 1 o'clock in Atlanta, so to me it's late. But today we unite on a common purpose, and that succeeding together, learn and improve, and being forward-looking. So with that said, I will go ahead and turn that over to a great person that has already been introduced, and that's Eric Niemeyer.
Oh, well, thank you, Gilbert, and thank you, Bryce. Hi, you guys. I'm up here in beautiful Northwest in the Columbia River Gorge in Hood River, Oregon, the windsurfing capital of the world. It's 55 degrees, a little drizzly, and you can see behind me, I've shrunk myself so that I can be inside of the grass. And I'm wrapped up with, what is it? My camo and my Columbia fishing shirt. So from Arizona, we're living at plus 100 degrees, so it's cold up here. So what we're going to be talking about today, folks, is as Bryce has mentioned, I've been in nuclear power for a little bit, and predominantly nuclear power has been backward looking at unwanted outcomes that occur, and then you try to manage forward based upon trends of those unwanted outcomes. Of course, as the industry is shifting more and improving in their performance, it's harder and harder to use unwanted outcomes. What's an unwanted outcome? Team clock resets, site clock resets, those kind of things. Our industry is performing at such a high level. There's not a lot of that information available to people specifically in the organizational effectiveness or performance improvement arenas. But one of the low-level opportunities that we can use, some of us call them team clock resets. We're going to, at Palo Verde, move to, I think, a more mature term. Maybe we call them learning clocks, learning resets, learning clock resets, whatever, where we ask our staff members through our condition reporting program to capture any outcome that is unexpected in the lowest levels possible. And we're going to show you guys today how we use a suite of Microsoft Power Platforms to characterize those learning opportunities in a way that they can be easily accessed by the leadership team. And then they can make adjustments based on what they know about their groups, because that aligns with one of our nuclear industry values for being self-aware and self-correcting. So Gilbert, you want to go ahead and take us right into this here and talk a little bit about the power platforms. Before you do, Gilbert, why don't I say a couple of things about this? Some of the people on this call have educational backgrounds, or in college, they may have seen what's called the depths of knowledge chart. The takeaway from this screen is you can see it has 4 quadrants. You see over it says quadrant number 1, data, and then seeing, doing, in quadrant number 2. Quadrant 3 is thinking, and then quadrant number 4 is extended thinking. Really, what this depths of knowledge chart is meant to communicate to us is what we want to do is we want to help leaders be extended thinkers or just thinking. That's what leaders really are, is their decision machines. That's one of their primary functions. Anytime that a leader is spent managing data is time that they're not spending doing what they do best as humans. And so what Gilbert's about to show us is, once again, how we use the Microsoft Power Platforms to automatically take data. And in this case, we're going to talk about the learning reset data and transform that around in a clockwise fashion in this depths of knowledge wheel to turn the data into information and then knowledge, and then do some comparing. And ultimately on the back end, what the intent of the Power Platform suites is to deliver to the leader insights that they can use to make decisions and strategize, if you will. That's really all that we want you to see from this chart. So we're striving to get our leaders into that extended thinking area without doing all of the work, if you will, that the other quadrants represent. Any questions about that? If you do, please put it in the chat, and then we're monitoring the chat. We can actually in real time. We're going to have a conversational tone. We've got enough time on this discussion today to take on some of those questions in real time. That's not problematic. Typically, these presentations, we wait till the end. But for those that are monitoring the chat, do have a bias for jumping in and asking us, and we'll be glad to expound and clarify as we go through. Back to you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Eric. So those of you that are familiar with the Microsoft Power Platforms, if you're not, the makeup of the Power Platforms is a cloud solution. So it's Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI. So at Palo Verde, we use Power Platform to save time, boost productivity, reduce cost, and become more flexible. Microsoft Power Platform, which also integrates, as we've talking today, low-code solutions with the back-end trusted Microsoft cloud services. And so we'll be talking about Office 365 here today as well. We won't dive deep into 365, but just show you how, with what Eric has mentioned in our clock reset data, how we move the data using those products. So Microsoft's goal when they created the Power Platform is to create citizen developers. So citizen developers allows any one of us to become that next level, or the level of a developer without using traditional development within your organizations. So they've created platforms that are intuitive, they're easy to use. That anyone with the Office 365 licensing can easily stand up any one of these products. So now, could you build a Power BI product without Power Apps? Absolutely. Could you build a Power Apps without Power BI and Power Automate? Absolutely. So you kind of get the gist that any one of these products can be used independently, but when you put them all together, this is what the beauty of the cloud services allows you to create automation in any one of these platforms. So Microsoft, for those that want to know a little bit technical piece of this, so Microsoft Power FX is the low-code language that's used to express logic across the Power Platform. So it's the same language if you're familiar with Microsoft Excel. So that's a very similar language that's being used here. So as Eric mentioned, and we'll move on to the next slide. So as we discussed, so data is transferred manually in the depths of knowledge, whereas Power Automate is automating this process. So that data piece, if you look on the screen, it's in blue. That data could be coming in from any source, right? It could be SQL, could be your Oracle databases, could be an Excel file, etc. But what happens when you're using the Power Automate from the cloud services, in our case, at 4 p.m., I receive an email that hits my inbox from our site work management system, where we store corrective action program data, could be self-assessment data, qualifications, records, etc. But nonetheless, as soon as that email hits my Outlook, Power Automate triggers an action. Okay, and what it does is it sends it to SharePoint. And it also moves it to Excel. So basically, just to bring it up a little bit back to kind of just illustrate something to you is because I've got my Excel and SharePoint mixed up a little bit, but that's okay. So from Outlook, I get an Excel file that's delivered to me from our SWIMS, which is our work management system. So then what happens is another automation is triggered to take that Excel document, convert it into a method that can easily be imported into SharePoint. So then in a SharePoint list. So then in a SharePoint list, now Power Apps and Power Automate can take that data, visualize it, or view it like within a Power Apps mobile app or desktop app. So that's how the data is being moved every day at 4 p.m. And then again, once the data moves through that process, there's another final trigger where it actually takes the Excel file, deletes it from SharePoint, okay? And that way the process starts clean every day, okay? So at 4 p.m., I just make sure that I look at my Outlook and make sure that email gets is in my inbox and let the process go. So with that said, as we were talking about, we used the term clock reset or learning reset, as you may know it as well. But in our next slide, Eric will take us into the journey of how once the data is moved in through this process where we use some back-end coding that is manually done at this time. But I'll let Eric chime in on that. Eric?
Thank you. I muted because my nephew's hunting dogs are howling. So can you hear those howlers?
I vaguely hear them, Eric.
Okay, so, sorry about that, you guys. Like I said, he's an avid hunter year round, and I'd stick his hunting dogs in the garage. So on the previous screen, when Gilbert was talking, he was talking through the various automatic triggered processes that we've tried to set up so that humans don't have to do that work. But there is one stop along the way where humans have to re-engage with the learning resets that we talked about at the beginning of this. They are reported by our staff members in our condition reporting program. Some people call them CRs at our various sites. And we encourage people to have the lowest threshold of reporting, even if they were late to training, the multitude of things. Matter of fact, we'll talk about some of the examples that we're trying to encourage people to report so that we can trend that. That information through the site work management process that Gilbert mentioned at the very beginning at 4 a.m, various reports are sent out through Outlook. SharePoint reports are posted. Excel spreadsheets are updated. And then ultimately, we have not ultimately, but along the journey, there is a Power App that we use, and we'll show you specifically how that works. And it takes those learning resets, and it's already sorted the learning resets into certain types of learnings. But this is an illustration on the screen here where you can see that we recognize high-level categories where we do have to ask humans, our trending people, to re-engage with that data, characterize it. Gilbert, would you maybe click on number 1 there, for example? Okay, so we see the high-level categories 1 through 6 on the screen. Executing work is something at any station or any business people have to do. Number 2, operating the plant, we have those learnings are typically in the operations department. You have maintaining the plant, maintaining radiation protection, security related issues. And then you have, they're all cross-functional, even if it's maintaining radiation protection. It's not just your radiation protection department. As nuclear professionals, we all have a role in maintaining radiation protection, as well as security, controlling risk, protecting people, and executing work. They're cross-functional, but we find that some of the departments typically play a more pronounced role in those. But in the area of executing work, you can see some of the categories that Gilbert has popped out. Why don't you click on all of those so people can kind of get a feel, Gilbert, with the types of subcategories that our trending team applies to these learning resets Take a look at the lower left-hand one where it says controlling risk, controlling fire risk. It could be something as simple as leading some transient combustible control material in the plant in a safety-related area that finds its way to a condition report, and then automatically it finds its way all the way over to a power app that, as I mentioned in the next screen, Gilbert's going to illustrate and show us how that works. And we apply these various codes. So that would be a controlling fire risk. And that's pretty much it. Those are some categories. And those are available. And if anybody wants for us to send those for benchmarking, you can reach out to us so we can get you that information. We've spent since 2017 at Palo Verde refining these various areas, and we find them to be very useful. They're directed so that, once again, leaders individually can be self-aware and then be self-correcting of their organization's performance based on these codes. Once again, they're backward-looking, but that's a lot of the business that we're in, is looking back. Let's take a look at the next screen, Gilbert.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. So one of the benefits of, before I go into an actual demo, I just want to mention some benefits of Power Apps. As I said earlier, it's user-friendly interface. It's got a drag and drop functionalities, which make it easy for Palo Verde to create and customize apps without requiring a lot of technical expertise. Back to the citizen developer position that Microsoft is taking. So this means that we can quickly get started with automation and leverage its benefits without the need for expensive software or IT resources. So another great feature of Power Apps is the ability to seamlessly connect to various data sources I mentioned earlier, like SQL, Oracle, Excel, etc., which allows us to quickly integrate our apps with external sources. Those external sources, and we haven't really explored a lot of other sources other than SQL and Oracle. But again, those are some a feature that is awesome within Power Apps. But one of the biggest advantages of Power App is that flexibility that you can access and use the Power App from anywhere. So the Power App can be accessed from any device, or a desktop, laptop, a tablet, a smartphone. So let's go ahead and switch into the Power App on the cloud, so you can kind of see what that looks like. So this is the Power App, and again, it's accessed from the apps.powerapps.com, but again, it's specifically to Palo Verde, so it's not accessible outside of our tenant, and that's what the Microsoft language for, like, basically that's your house of information is stored, secured. As I mentioned earlier, it's got security on that, and only folks that are within the APS.com environment can access this information. So this is the Power App. Again, it allows the flexibility of an individual can manually enter the data, but what I really want to show off is the back end, which is where we have talked about how the data is being moved at 4 p.m. Or 4 a.m. or whatever time you designate it to be, to move through a life cycle to get it move the data into like a Power Apps or a Power BI. So in this case, this is Power Apps. The one cool feature about Power Apps is you can hide elements. So there, bottom right-hand corner, there is an admin icon. And there's another icon for where the data set is located in SharePoint, which if I clicked on that, it would take you right to the SharePoint list where you see all the data that's behind the scenes. But this specific icon that I'm clicking on is the administration part, where we're going to show where the rubber meets the road. So this is, again, cloud services, so it takes a little bit to load, and it loads 100 records at a time. So what you're seeing here is the condition to start from the left to right, where you can actually make a copy of the data if you wanted to. Right in here, you can make 1 copy, 3 copies, but this is all based on business requirement from our customers. Depending on the clock reset, it may apply to different units. So the ease of being able to create multiple copies within the system allows that flexibility. So again, we're in the team reset type, and if I needed to click on the condition report to see more detail in from the SWIMS back end, then I could do that right from the system. As you can see, the title in red, what that means is for this specific item, let's say this one here, employee index finger pinched for it was a first aid, which department it was, a unit, the date, etc. But the data is red because it means that we have not characterized the data in the back end. So the team on Thursday morning or afternoon, they've designated that day as a data information day where they go back in the system and start bucketing that information. So let me go ahead and click on one of those so you can see what that looks like. So on the employee index finger pinch, I'll just click on edit the data. And again, now here's the information from what you saw on the first screen. So this is where Eric goes talking about the different buckets, right? So in this case, a T6 alpha minor first aid, but again, it could be whatever bucket you choose. For this case, I'm not going to really do anything other than just show you the buckets. So if I click on, say, protecting people, as you can see within Power Apps, you're able to expose fields, hide them based on some action. So there's really like logic, right, that you can write out of the box or with the extensive code that I talked about earlier about Microsoft FX. So in this case, like I said, now I can do the next item. I'm not really looking at this really closely, so I'm just picking for the sake of the demonstration. So from here, I would submit that information, and I'm just going to cancel that because then once I would do that and come back to the screen, now it would turn black. The title would go black, meaning it's already been looked at cognitively and bucketed accordingly. So you might have some questions in that, but let me just go ahead and switch back to the presentation to get us back to the demo or back to the next slide, where Eric will talk to us a little bit about how now, as you've seen, the journey of the data. As I mentioned earlier from Outlook, I wasn't going to show that, but it went from Outlook, it did some Power Automate movement of triggering data, moving it into now, in this case, it's final destination of Power Apps. So now from here, from Power Apps, we've connected Power BI, which I'll turn it over here to Eric in a minute, which now we're going to look at that bucketed information and how the line organization uses that data. Eric?
Yeah. Thank you, Gilbert. Okay, so this is nothing surprising to anybody. And you can see over on the right-hand side, this is a bar chart. It's got the various major categories that we saw on a previous screen with a couple extra in there. This is just a real quick, simple slide. What we want to communicate to you in this is all of this happens automatically. And then for you old experts in Excel, I know you'd say, hey, how did I do? I was able to do that before in Excel, and some people could do that. They could have certain platforms where the graphics would automatically update. Once again, this is all within that Power Platform set of suites, so that real time, we have some filters that aren't illustrated on the screen right here, but leaders in the organization can go to our website in the organizational effectiveness, click on this or favorite it, whatever, and they can real time see. Well, when I say real time, it's what we've seen so far, right? Those condition reports and then 24-hour delay. But within 48 hours, the performance learning opportunities are illustrated graphically here. And that helps. We've tried ever since the last 3 years to drive what we call self-awareness and self-correcting in the nuclear industry down to the section and team leader levels. That's something that we value, is that every section and team leader organization leader would know what their trends and performance look like in this area of learning resets. And then there's additional granularity. For example, what you have on the screen here is high level. So once again, using filters very intuitively, they just click through it and they can, so let's say, sort out a specific information stream, and then they can use that graph to develop strategies to improve. That's all this is.
Hey, Eric, let me go ahead and show that.
Yeah, let's take a look.
We got some time, so let's take a look at that a little closer. So as Eric just mentioned, so this is the Power BI that now, where that data is visualized. As you can see, there's a lot of other features if you want to be very specific of a department you wanted to look at closer. Okay, you can just use this filters to look at that data, and then also, for instance, the minor category that we talked about. You saw the major bucket and the minor categories, and now you can kind of see the data in this space. You can do it by this year if you wanted to. This is the year. This is the year. There's all the information, and so forth. So this is like I said. I'm just clicking around here. I'm not really doing anything intuitive other than looking at just how we built this information. So that the line organization can use it at any time for, like, for instance, their integrated performance assessments, which actually we can, be a good segue to show that. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. And matter of fact, there may be some people that want to come back to this at the end of the presentation. What is this that we're illustrating right here? We're going to go off topic for a minute because we've got a lot of available time. When I say off topic, since you did bring it up, Gilbert, a lot of the people on this call in organizational effectiveness related parts of the industry know that the nuclear industry has been, as I previously mentioned at the very beginning, very backward looking in order to learn. In our station, we would look back as far as 6 months and we would do this integrated performance assessment, which was pretty much a thing that a lot of the stations in the industry would do. But anybody that's ever been instructing or teaching children, positive and immediate or negative and immediate and certain feedback right away is what helps people learn. When you tell people that they're trends that are 6 months old, nobody even wants to look at that. It ends up being pretty much a waste of time. Additionally, we used to put out like a 34-page report of the last 6 months worth of performance. How many people do you think sat down and read that to their children at night? So what we've gone to is just a simple 2-page A3 formatted performance, let's just say a whiteboard. This way, our clients throughout the departments, the various departments on the station, throughout the station, can speak from the same sheet of music. If they have a stakeholder, an external overseeing stakeholder, IMPO partner, anybody, they can go to their A3 sheet, which is, like I said, we try to keep it to 2 pages. There's various active links on there. And you can see in the very center is a cut and paste of the graph, one of the graphs that we saw on our presentation. And so it just keeps it simple and clean. And additionally, we expect our clients, we support our clients at the station in keeping this up to date each month so that when there, for example, IMPO metrics come out, or if they have a safety review committee that may be offsite, has a visit, those are various things that we help them remember to refresh that, or if when leaders change, various department leaders, client department leaders are responsible for this. It's just a really good tool for everybody to speak from, and it also increase their business acumen in the area of managing performance as they move up through their career stream. Matter of fact, what's the second page look like there on this one? Okay, so this is our operations department A3, page 1, and you can see on page 2, there's some additional information that I'm not going to cover, but there's some initiatives that operations department at Palo Verde Generation Station is focusing on at the department level as well as at the site level, and they've got a graphic there that shows how those are integrated, and that's all I want you to see from that. Yeah. So we're very excited about that. It's efficient, and we've really taken the number of person hours that the station expends on that integrated performance assessment and really cut it down to a tenth of what it used to be.
Yeah, and Eric, if you don't mind, like I said, it's even though we've segued a little bit from Power Platform, this is a compelling story, right? I mean, the story of how we're using in-house products. Because if you look at this closely on these what's highlighted are links to other Power BI. You see that PBI, right? The lowercase I. So this product is also linking outward, right? So it's linking to more data, right? This gives you insight, meaning an insight into what else is on the outside, meaning when you click on it, it takes you now to more in-depth information to support this A3, which to me, from the nuclear industry of self-awareness, self-correcting, teaching and learning, I mean, we're doing we're doing well in this space because we're using the products to help us be more efficient versus linking to a bunch of like say SharePoint information and digging through lists and digging through other document libraries where we've really harnessed the tools to get us to be more, like I said, in this case, efficient and flexible.
Mhm.
So it's a great story to share with everyone, even though we moved a little bit away from the presentation, but nonetheless,
No,
uh,
let's,
as,
and I'm
as
going to
we've yeah, I just want to do a quick plug for Power BI because it is, I can't say stress enough how intuitive and self-service the product is. It's an intelligence platform that really doesn't require technical or IT teams to operate. As I said earlier about the citizen developers and across Palo Verde, I've seen from department leaders to again individual contributors to directors standing up these products, right? Because it's that easy. Now, could you extend the way the product behaves? Absolutely. If you've got a background in say maybe you're looking at AI and you want to write some Python, absolutely, this product will support it, and you can extend now more into that space. But what I really like about Power BI is it really when it you go online and folks have asked, well, is it a free tool? It is. I mean, you don't need to have the Office 365 tenant, but if you just wanted to have Power BI to say, I want to create quick graphs and just have them on your desktop, you can do that. Obviously the benefit of being in the cloud is you can then publish to the cloud and then and link to the, within Power Apps and other products like that. But I've seen folks in other companies where they're just using the Power BI desktop and they're creating graphs and visualizing data, and then they just create a PDF of the information to say pass around in a meeting, right? Or pull it up on their screen, to present. So you can do that. So overall, I just want to say Power BI is an excellent tool for those who want to quickly and easily create insightful business intelligence reports. So let me move on to the next slide. So what you heard today is really how we're using the Power platform, right? So with the Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI. Now, we haven't scratched the surface in these products. I mean, we've only used them for the last maybe 3 years. But again, there's still a lot that can be done with Power Automate. That every day, Microsoft's coming out with something new on how they've extended the product to do different things within the environment. You can connect to Teams. You can send in notifications to Teams. You can grab internal information like Office 365 profiles. So like if you wanted to create, now I'm going to talk about it here in a minute, but if you had like a platform for employee engagement that notifies not only the individual that's being recognized, like a thank you through a Power App. So in the back end, Power Automate could grab that, basically that person's email. Then it goes and grabs the individual's leader information. So that way, when the email goes out for the recognition, not only the person being recognized, but also the leadership is aware of whom was recognizing for what, which is huge, right? From an organization where you're trying to be all inclusive, right? Diversity, inclusion, and you want to talk about the power of a thank you, right? So just closing the loop here on what we talked about today is using the cloud services and how we're moving the data around using Office 365 products and then visualizing the information and all within the Microsoft Cloud Services. So let me move into the last slide because within Power Apps, we've built, as I said earlier, about a thank you app where we use it. We probably have over 1,000 thank yous thus far this year. And this is an enterprise. The thank you is on the left side, that first screen. That's for employee engagement. That's a product that was created because we had a like every employee engagement group at Palo Verde had their own thank you process and thank you platforms to where, and even at the corporate level, the same thing where Palo Verde and APS, which is our corporate office, we came together and said, hey, let's build one platform for everyone, right? So now we have this e-thanks to where now I can again recognize anyone within the organization that has an office email, like say like Gilbert.Cosme at APS.com or Eric.Niemeyer and so forth. So if you're in the system in that manner, then I can choose his name. Then I can recognize it for a specific, like in this case on the screen, it's like promise, our nuclear, or not nuclear promise, but our APS promise of empowering each other or like succeeding together and so forth. And that's the attribute. And then I just hit submit, and then all the magic happens at the back end. And then I, in this case, I also have a Power BI that has like all of our locations from our 502 buildings and downtown Phoenix to Palo Verde to all over where, and we can measure who's doing the most recognitions by month, by year, et cetera. And just to show, to our leadership as to create more engagement in that space. We also have instant operating experience, excuse me, where we're doing internal sharing of operating experience. Like if, for instance, if we have this is an old event there from 8/11/2023. So any event that could help us get better, right? With the notion of getting better every day and learning and improving. We share this broadly. There's also pictures attached to it that it's all on the app where an individual, anybody, like I said, that has access can, not anybody can submit it, but anyone, meaning that within our environment, can submit the instant OE. It's usually more leadership driven, which is the expectation from our CNO, Chief Nuclear Officer. And then from there, they can share a picture of what it looked like. So to see if there's some commonality in other areas with our environment, so we can get better every day. And the last one is like a mode 4 punch list that I created because it was very tedious when we get to our mode 4, which is our containment cleanliness. So inside our containment, I was able to bring a mobile device that is not connected to the internet, meaning like it's not a cellular phone anymore. All it has is Wi-Fi. I think a lot of us have those in our drawers, right? But I was able to still connect to our Office 365 cloud services. And I stood up a Power App where in our elevations of containment from the 80-foot, 100-foot, 120, I was taking pictures. So then I would create a Power BI report by the time it came to the containment cleanliness effort. So the workers that were going to go pick up all the material, this debris, would basically know, where specifically a ladder was or a toolbox, et cetera, right? All to be more efficient, because again, we want to protect our sumps and we don't want to have any of this debris clog up those sumps. So again, it's really from what your imagination is, and then you can stand up any one of these products to meet that business need and be innovative. Like I said, if you're looking to solve a problem, and you've got the tools, and give it a try. And again, you don't have to be an IT developer. Obviously, if you're an IT developer, it's a plus, if you have that background, but don't let that, detract you from, trying. If you're able to use the products and try it and build something that could save time and effort. So this is a final slide. So I showed you, just some low code solutions that we built with the Microsoft Power Platform. And Eric, I don't know if you mentioned it, but operations also has a Power App where they do in-field observations. So that's all I have. That's the end of our presentation. So I'd like to kick it back to either Price or Nicole or Eric. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I think you pretty well covered it there. And, that you just briefly mentioned that the operations team has a Power App that we strive to allow leaders to do a 1-minute observation on their phone. And I think everything that I've heard today from you, Gilbert, makes me remember that there's a saying, and I can't remember exactly what the saying is, but I know that our offsite safety review member, Bill McCullum, reminds us consistently when he comes out and sees us that easy is sustainable. If you make it easy for the client, then it will sustain. And this is really the takeaway that I get from when I hear you. And this is make it easy, and it'll be sustainable. And then ultimately, people can be individually and at the lowest levels of the organization self-aware, so that in real time they can get the quickest feedback to be self-correcting.
Thank you, Eric.
Mm-hmm. And then didn't we see a hand? Yeah, talk to us.
Governor, I have a couple of questions for you. So I'm going to ask Gilbert his question first. So while he's working on this in the background, Eric can answer my question specific to him. So when we were talking during conference about professional development week and the available tools, and you and I had discussed the US Win metrics and how difficult it is to get people to enter their time because it's just a lot of work. So I know that you have started working on something, a way for Palo Verde women in nuclear to measure their, keep their time. So could you demonstrate for us real quickly? And then since you're already got that up,
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tamara. Yeah, thank you, Tamara. I'll take it from here. So yeah, so that was the ask from Tamara. And I looked at right now, currently you have an Excel file where you keep track of all this information. Is that correct? Right. So, what I did is just looked at the data and said, okay, how easy is it to, connect to it? So I needed some more time, but I was able to bring in a couple, three events. And then in the back end, you can quickly click on a link. And if you need to make any updates, you can just click on the edit icon and update if it's, as some of you are familiar with the columns in the Excel file, you'll see this might be familiar to you. And you can add number of members, time in hours, et cetera, and other details, and then just keep saving the data. Let me go back one. But if I wanted to add a new record, right? So I could add, say, if we pre-populated the list, or you can do an other, right? And then again, I haven't really built this all out, but I just wanted to do a quick demo to show right now what it looks like, and you can choose if it's an event or not. And then you can do basically what you saw earlier about the number of members. You can do dates, if it's a public outreach, if it's a professional development, networking, etc. And then you're basically collecting this information in Power Apps, which again, as I mentioned earlier, this could be done on your phone, this could be on the desktop, and then in the back end now you could be visualizing what that looks like in Power BI, which then you can look at number of hours. You can start doing some analyzing year by year, month by month, involvement, things of that nature quickly, because it all does it for you once you build it. So yeah, that's where we're at, Tamara. I know I'm a little late on this deliverable, but I appreciate your flexibility and patience. Is that what you wanted to show us, Tamara?
That is absolutely it. Then my question was for Eric. So Eric, you've been with APS for a very long time, and you were instrumental in establishing the Palo Verde Performance Improvement Department. And I wonder, could you just tell us a little about that, how you went about organizing it, and then what you've seen, how it's changed, improved, and then, from where we started back in early 2000 and the tools available now.
There you go. Unmute. Right. Wow, what a huge monster question. And I think anybody who knows me, I'm like this eternal optimist. The worst thing can happen to me, and I'm just like, after I bust out the windshield and swim to the surface in the freezing cold water, I breathe, and then I go, this is going to be really good. And then I put it behind me. So it's hard to think back, and I don't want to spend a bunch of my brain cells on what the nuclear industry did in the past, but I think there's a couple notable things. One was that in about I think it was 2007, and some of you data analytics people probably remember this. So there's a New York Times article about how Target was doing their predictive analytics, and they were able to identify which customers should receive certain types of advertisements to their door back in the days when snail mail would send you advertisements. Well, I guess they still do. And father became very angry and got back with the company and said, why are you sending my teenage daughter this information about maternity and baby stuff? And he just got a little bit out of shape. Come to find out that their analytics predetermined that there was a person at this address that should be receiving these types of targeted information because it was discovered later that his teenage daughter was in fact pregnant. Well, anyway, that didn't help at the time the Target's stock price. They actually took I think a 2% dip. That was when America was waking up to the fact that big data can predict behaviors. So then the industry went through from about 2009 to 2020, a misbelief period where you could take the information that we had that was backward looking, and if you had enough of it, that you could predict which shop was going to have the next failure and what type of employee was going to do that. And we all just know that big data doesn't even start hardly till 1 million records, right? So what we're not doing is we're not living under that old belief that we're really going to predict behavior. So we don't spend as much time in the industry, thankfully, on trying to trend badness to predict how to get good. I think that all of the professionals are now really trying to unlock the power of the human in the positive light. And you can see the thank you there. And then Aubrey Daniels, who's been a long time in the industry, has a really terrific book out, as well as an audio that I would encourage everyone. And that's Bringing Out the Best in People. And if we have any info partners online, we know that the Senior Nuclear Plant Manager course, that's one of the books that they use as a curriculum for that course. And one of the key things that is reinforced in that book, and that is positive, immediate, and certain. I mentioned briefly earlier, Nick, and that's negative, immediate, and certain. But the industry, I think, has recognized the power of positivity and unlocking humans' ability to access their discretionary effort. And we do that through positivity and immediately recognizing goodness. And these tools really help leaders do that, because I know the leader's job is really hard. When you go home at night as a leader, you're just trying to react to everything in your business that has occurred during the day and prepare for the next day. And taking that extra level to recognize your employees and capture that information and then reinforce it back to them. That's what really gives you the high performing results. And so that's what I'm excited about at Palo Verde, specifically under Gilbert's leadership. When he came into his role a year ago as a leader, I couldn't be more excited about the station's choice to hire him in that role, because everything about him is forward looking and positive. And how do we recreate that? And so I think that when you say, how have I seen the industry evolve? Notice I just mentioned that in the area of human performance, and really the positive. I think this is the most exciting time to work in our industry right now. And I will actually tell you, I'll confess, people, that I just joined WIN this year and then went to the WIN conference. And I was just floored at how the WIN is really moving the noble cause of nuclear power forward in the world, and they're doing it purposefully. I was just like never before has the industry seen this type of powerful people systematically and strategically moving the entire industry forward. And so I thank you all for that. I really, really do. It's so encouraging. It really makes working in this industry still fresh and exciting. Do we have any questions? I think, Tamara, did you indicate that there was a question?
There's a lot of questions. So I've got that. Yep. Yep. So the first one, or I should say the last one, but it's just, would you be able to go back to the PV Win coffee chat? Or let's see, can you click back on the PV Win coffee chat? I guess that person just wanted to see that for some reason. I'm not, maybe, is that the, Angela, is that the slide you were looking for? But while we're waiting on her reaction, I've got some other stuff in here. I just want to say,
please read some stuff. Yeah.
Yep, I appreciated the. I think there's been a lot of discussion, especially on the Duke side too, about that mode 4 punch list and whatnot. As somebody who had to deal with GSI 191 items, that was certainly a little near and dear to my heart. So first question I have is, what app was used for the punch list? Which one specifically?
Power Apps.
That was Power Apps. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Next question, which of the plugins do you feel has had the biggest impact?
Plugins, I'm gonna assume you're talking about maybe like between Power App or Power Automate, Power BI. Is that the plugin just for clarity purposes? Yeah, so I would say Power Automate, just because there's back end, something happens. There's magic happening in the back end. You click a button or you put an email, say in SharePoint, and it triggers something, right? It does something. It sends a bunch of emails. It uploads it to so the movement of data, as we talked about the VOK model, right? So it's moving the information by the human just doing something, or you can do it towards truly automated, like you set it and forget it, right? Where 8 a.m. something happens, right? And that whatever happens is what your creativity, what do you want it to do, right? So I think Power Automate for me would be the magician behind the curtain. Yeah.
Excellent. When using Power BI, do you primarily use the web or desktop app? And are there pros and cons?
Yeah, so pros and cons, 1000% I use the desktop. It's a lot more flexible. Like I said, you can store it's an Excel end file locally. You can pass that file to anyone, right, that has Power BI desktop. So working in the web browser doesn't give you that much flexibility. I mean, it's good, right? It does some things, but it doesn't do as much as you like, specifically with coding, doing some DAX development, things of that nature. It's I would definitely encourage the desktop.
Let's see. So I put this in the so somebody put it in the chat, but they're curious as to what communication platform APS is using for the thank you, instant OE, and punch list information. Is it Dashboard or Outlook?
So say that again. So how? Yeah, I just need some clarification. So how APS is using the data?
Margot, would you be able to expand on that in the chat, please? And then another question to Gilberto on the PVWin coffee chat. If you could go back when you get a second, if you could go back to that slide, just a request to click on one of the categories shown.
Price, I've allowed Margot access to talk, so she can maybe explain.
Okay.
Margot, I gave you permission to speak if you want to unmute.
Well, while we're might take her a second, perhaps maybe. Margot, do you have? If you're speaking, we don't hear you.
Well, she's doing that just as kind of related. Remember, I was talking about the nuclear industry and how we looked at all the problems in the past to try to drive the future, which is kind of a broken mindset. This is an example of trending positivity, and you can go and look at those departments that are fully engaged with reinforcing positive for people, and you can make correlations to performance. So that's a perfect example of glass. What is it? Is that glass half empty or glass? Yeah, glass half empty thinking for the future. So why not get engaged with positivity, trend it, seek to understand it, and then look for those performance correlations, and then basically sell that philosophy to your clients, your client departments, and get everybody on the positive train.
That's right. And from a leader standpoint, I use this information when it comes down to our mid-year and end of the year performance on how and whom recognized the individual and for what, right? So I keep track of this information because of how they are, meaning our consultants are performing, how they're helping the line shape, and influence behavior. That's important information for me to have. Otherwise, again, I wouldn't have that without this platform, right? I mean, I could talk to people, but for the most part, if the information is being submitted into this platform, any leader can grab this information for their specific unit and then talk about it. Maybe bring it up at a mid-year celebration. Hey, we've got 25 people that got recognized for X, right? Or 5 people, or 2 people, or for going above and beyond. So we have specific principles that we go after. So as you can see from the screen, the promise, APS promise of succeeding together. I mean, look at the numbers on that. You can see, I mean, it's very heavy. So what can we do more in other areas to bring those to the forefront, like that one, right? It's like moving safety forward or designing for tomorrow. So.
Yeah, so I guess Margot had some, so thank you for that. Looks like Margot had some audio difficulties. But a question was, for all that good, how is all that good information communicated to employees? Is it a weekly message that goes out, or is it just a dashboard that they see things?
So right now, the information is just for APS and Palo Verde communications. So in most recent discussions with Palo Verde and APS, what they're looking at is looking for specific information, like a specific principle, which then they're going to be using it for like recognition, like tiered recognition. As I mentioned earlier, each employee engagement group had their own thank you product and process. So now it's more at the higher level, because we're encouraging more thank yous. So now, like, our Palo Verde Communications is looking at maybe doing some tiered recognition for, say, movie tickets or whatever, right? Not a car, but I mean something that's reasonable and prudent, right? That we can recognize our employees for their hard work. And that, so it's great that was brought up, because recently the notification that gets sent, I said earlier, to the employee and the leader. Well, now I've added an additional line in that triggers that if it's a specific principle, that it sends it only to Palo Verde Communications inbox. See, that's what I'm saying. The magic behind the curtain is moving data, right? Based on a principle, a field, a yes or a no. It's moving information where you want it to go. So yes.
I think she's also asking, how does the employee receive the communication? So if I were to send you a thank you, I go on the Palo Verde online SharePoint and I type it and then I hit submit. And then from there, what is happening on the back end so it gets to the employee?
Okay, so perfect. So as I said earlier, there's a notification, email notification. So if I recognized Eric and I wasn't Eric's leader, Eric gets the notification of the principal and the what, like what was he recognized for? And then the leader for Eric gets also notified. So that leader has that in his inbox. But using this BI, he or she can go into, say, the detail and extract, like, say, because he email, right? Some of us lose email, but nonetheless, if there's a specific person, right, making a recognition, or say a unit, let's just say I'm unit, I don't know, 9532 is my unit, but let's just pick on a unit here. So if that's my unit, now I can extract all this information, and then this is everyone in that unit, right? So if these are all my people, then I use this information, put it in OneNote or wherever, and say, okay, here's everything that everyone that's been recognized and for what, right? And who recognized them, which principle was it? There's more data here that I'm just trying to scroll down and get to, but the more fields here. See, here's the what. What was it for, right? So then the leader has the opportunity now to use this information however they want, right? But back to your question is, initially the individual being recognized gets that in their inbox, their leader gets copied, and you have it in as immediate thank you. Does that help?
Yes, she replied with perfect thanks, Gilbert.
Okay.
So I've got a question. So when you're looking at trending for potential, I'm going to go to the negative side of this instead of the glass half empty. When you're looking for trends on negative things, whether it's weekly or monthly or anything like that, do you do any sort of normalization for the trend you're looking at for the crew learnings? And what I mean by that is outage time. Outage time, you have a lot more folks on site, you're doing a lot more tasks, and it might be easy to see that you have a lot of things.
Sure. Right. And on the lower right hand, you'll see, Gilbert, if you'll direct your mouse to the graphic on the right where it says semi-annual, quarterly, monthly, like that. That's a really cool question, Bryce, because we have at Palo Verde 3 plants, and the way that we schedule our outages, we have 2 refueling outages every single year, no matter what. One in the spring, one in the fall. So if you're trying to do a quarterly graph, every spring and every fall, you're going to have these big peaks, right? And so you're going to have to, in some of these instances, you're going to semi-annual, right? So each semi-annual period is going to have a refueling outage in it. So what we do is we just go through the iterations. We'll do every week. We have a trending review meeting where we have our analysts apply those codes. I call them codes, but the sub buckets in those learning resets. And during that meeting or prior to that meeting, the various consultants who are responsible for their client areas are expected to spend some time in this tool and just click through it really quick. Literally, they can do it in 5 minutes for a particular client. They can choose like an operations client. They can go to the yearly graphs and they can drill down. And when they see certain trends, they can drive it down to the month. Cognitively, if you're at the month level and you recognize that you're in a refueling month, you're going to say, okay, that's just more activity. Am I scratching the itch that you're kind of alluding to here? It's really just timing.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, because it can certainly be, just looking at raw data can be disconcerting of why are we having all the, versus, normalizing it and seeing if you actually have a cognitive trend.
Exactly. See, it's a triggering tool, right? This tool, the Power BI tool that we were just illustrated on the screen, it's trigger the human to get engaged a little bit and drill down a little bit deeper. And then I don't know if you have it up, Gilbert, but that A3 we had on operations, for example, if you pull that, can you bring on that and then zoom into the very center graph, Gilbert, of the A3 that we had for operations, Power BI? What I would expect, and he's going to zoom in on this, Price, but if you look at that graph in the very center there, and Gilbert's going to scroll over a little bit so you can see what's underneath the graph. When we talk to there you go, right there, Gilbert, perfect. So this is a perfect example of just a real quick, you got quarters, right? And you look, but no one can escape from, and scroll down just a little bit, Gilbert, just a wee bit. So you can see the bucket, you're at the other direction.
Okay. Scroll down, right or left?
Scroll down no, I want to see the category names on that graph.
Oh, it ends right here, Eric. That's the bottom of the page.
No. But go back to the graph. I just want to see the legend. There, freeze, right there.
Oh, this side. Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, see that big blue? Any leader can immediately recognize they got something going on in executing work. And if Gilbert scrolls down so we can see below it, what I would expect under there you go. Large jump in 13 previously called team clock resets. We're going to call them learning clock resets in the third quarter of 2023 related to, and then the consultant will have gone in and spent a little bit of time reading those individuals and they'll bullet them right there. And that's a high level of awareness that they can have a meeting with the client and say, hey, you might want to get engaged with your document turnover process. Is that answering the question you're asking?
Yeah, it did, because I've definitely seen some minor freakouts before, but then it's like, oh, well, when you actually factor in all the variables, maybe it's not so bad.
Sure, sure.
Maybe it's not a trend. Maybe it's, business as usual, so to speak.
Right, but in that case, that was a 2023 third quarter, which is a quarter in which we do not have an outage. And then you go, well, so clearly that would be typically one of our reduced periods of activity in learning resets, yet we had 13. So definitely time to engage the client and get the client engaged with their staff.
Yeah, and speaking of engagement, Eric, let's segue into this leader tool that I built for myself for events for human error. If there's a human error, as you can see, where we're at during our outage months, April, May, that's a high spike, right? So this is where we are today, but nonetheless, the back end data gives us a case for action, right? So it tells us that, this is the wrong screen, but this next screen here, this one here gives me an insight into where we are with human events. And Tuesday seems to be like our biggest hitter, right now. So coming to an outage, right? If you look at the report that you can change this information, but you can use this to say, okay, on Tuesday, if Tuesday is the day for the biggest events, what can we do as an organization to go out and do maybe more, sit in on more pre-job briefs, be more intrusive and be more like on the field, be helping and shaping behaviors to get that number to be lower, right? So this, while it's not gonna tell you like it's not like analytics to where you're predicting to a degree, but at least you've got some insight on which, like, even, and this, I don't know if you can see this, but on the right-hand side is the day of the month that we have the highest hits when it comes to human events. So, that could be, say on the 6th, we're going to go we have this one team initiative, right? Where we, our leaders, directors, managers, et cetera, go out into the field on the day of the 6th day, whatever the work is going on, let's see what it is, right? But at least it gives you some information to go perform an action, right? Versus like, well, what do we have in front of us? We've got a lot of data, but that doesn't tell us anything. So might not be predictive, but it gives you some really good insights. So yeah, I use this as a leader tool for myself. I read all the condition reports in the morning. I get this, it's right on my phone. Right now it's not changing for a mobile device, but as you'll see here in a minute, if I were to change the screen view, it's adjusting. So that way, when it's on my phone, it'll adjust to that size. And then I read it on my phone every morning because it's in the cloud service, right? So again, leader tools, you can build leader tools on any data you have based on what you're looking for. So anything else?
We got a question from Lori.
Great overview.
What was that?
So Lori in the chat is saying, what is the trending tool for the safety trending applications? I'll repeat that. What is the trending tool for the safety trending applications?
For the safety trending applications. Are you asking for like if the industrial safety has their own trending tools in Power BI?
And then, well, Tamara's given Lori the opportunity to come off mute if she can, or if she can on herself, where you analyze the data, safety trending apps. So, and once again, if Tamara and Lori can work to get Lori verbally on, that'd be swell. But what I'm thinking out loud with you guys is, Lori, is, safety is so central to everything that we do. How are we using some of these tools to trend safety outcomes? Okay, now remember that, and I remind you, Gilbert, back to the days when we had Jim, and he had the super Excel spreadsheet since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
How are we partnering in organizational effectiveness with our safety partners to bring these platforms to that particular realm of data?
So actively right now with Jason Kent is just getting them up to speed on the tools, what the tools can provide. But again, it's resources, right? We're all challenged with resources. So, but he is aware, he's familiar with the products that, he can visualize, take all that Excel and bring it into Power BI. But we do, from a safety perspective, let me just switch over to, say, our observations, right? So our observations are also being trended. Catches, if there's a good catch within an attribute, right? So then we look at that closely as well, and not close calls because we have a whole different system for that, Devon Way. But not sure if that helps answer the question.
Well, I appreciate, what you're showing us is some observations related to that. And I think what Lori, and you can type in some more, Lori, there is indicating, and I bring you and I back to Jim Brown, everything in safety related outcomes in the nuclear industry has, I would expect that probably anybody who's on here from the station has an Excel spreadsheet somewhere with every little safety outcome, and when, where, why, how, who, and if we have that. And I think the answer for you, Lori, is that at this time we don't have a good visually graphic to provide you using the Power BI platform for that. We have a whole safety department. I think that you actually bring a good question up, and I think, and so I'm going to make a note of it, that when we get off here, I think we do need to, because we're supposed to be a force multiplier in the organizational effectiveness department. And really, I should be able to answer that question like instantly. And I'm going to tell you right now that the answer is wanting. So we're going to get with Jason, and we're going to find out how he's doing in that regard, and bring our resources to support him. So Brenda's taken off. Thanks, Brenda. Farewell. Is that an acceptable answer? That kind of scratched the itch that you were asking about, Lori? Oh, here, look at that. We've got Lori. We used it for safety trending at Duke, and you had the tool screenshots. The screen we saw may have been for human performance. Yeah, the tool that we've illustrated in this has been for our human performance. Yes, we were illustrating our human performance.
That's right.
And then you at Duke, you do use it for safety trending. So maybe we can learn from you. Jason, Kent, L'Oreal.
I've got something that came to my head while we were discussing everything.
Please
Again,
do.
fantastic answers so far. So obviously this took, a fair amount of time to set up, get the automation all started and whatnot, and then maybe some tweaking as you got things rolled out and whatnot. Did you ever have any challenges with getting senior leadership buy-in or communicating to them after the fact?
Little change management question there, huh? Adoption.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to take a stab at it. And Gilbert, I know you got some thoughts that you want to share. Easy is sustainable. When you're in change life, if you're giving a client an easier tool, a more intuitive tool, and a more effective tool, change management is pretty easy. So up until now, from my perspective, I think it's been a really great journey. A lot of people are very willing at all levels of the organization to adopt these tools. That's my opinion. Back to you, Gilbert.
Yeah, no, I agree. And speaking of, so there's governance, right? So corporate IT has a level of governance when it comes to these tools, where because it's going to impact IT to a degree. And what I mean by that is because remember the citizen developer comment I made. So we can stand up all these products, right? But at the end of the day, say I leave, Eric leaves, what happens now, right? So there's been cases where IT is like, well, if we don't know about it, we can't support it. So with that case is we at Palo Verde are tied in with our IT department. So they know what we're working on. They know what product we have. So they know how many items are out there from a support standpoint, because they're not going to tell us, no, you cannot go build Power Apps. They're going to support it because it is part of our toolbox. But the fact is they've been burned a little bit, and, from an IT perspective back in the day when a lot of Microsoft Access products were being built, and then that person left, retired, quit, whatever, fired, And now they have to support this beast of a Microsoft Access database, et cetera. And there's no turnover, there's no documentation. So that's why they put this governance to where, specifically with Power BI, they've given us the ability to publish to our own workspaces at Palo Verde, but they know that it's not like the masses are publishing. They're very specific individuals that know the product and then they know how to support, meaning IT knows how to support those products. So that way, if I leave, everything's, I for one example is when I build a Power App, I give specific IT people access as owners. So that way, if for some reason I leave, they need to go in and do some more development or kill it, whatever they need to do, they have the same authority as when I first built the product.
Gilbert, would you be able to slide back over a little bit to your right, a little out of camera?
Am I? Sorry.
There you go.
Much
I
better.
thought it was right.
There you go. There you
I
go.
thought Eric was just dominating the stage, let him have the spotlight.
Lori, I see you've got your hand raised. If you're able to come off mute, please ask your question.
I did get off mute. The operator helped me. I'll go back to I think it was the human performance. So I'm assuming that you got the data from your CAP program, and then it is that data comes in and it shows in that tool, and then you drill in to something else to then go in and identify which bucket it goes into.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just curious as to what platform that all occurred in. I know you brought it in. Is it coming into Power Apps, through Power Apps to?
So back up a little bit. So we bring the data into SharePoint, right? First it goes to Excel, then it goes to SharePoint, then it goes into then we can visualize it in the Power App. When I did the demo. So I'm going to open up my email. So I apologize if you see my email and there's a bunch of it. I know there's a lot of stuff, but I'm locked up over here.
While you're doing that, so just for clarification, so I can understand, because I'm not as technically as good as Gilbert, Lori. So you're wanting to see some of the technical specifics on that journey of data. Which components and what platforms and programs as it travels from its journey from the original originator, which is the employee, putting it into the condition reporting program, and then as it bounces around through Power Automate and it arrives finally at whatever destination. In this case, we have a Power App where additional humans cognitively review and then bucket. That's the ask? Is that what you're asking, Lori?
That's what I was wondering. Yes, I'm not very technical either, but I was just curious as to how that transpired because my head was spinning and I'm thinking we used to do all that manually also. And we would review all the CRs to get all the safety data and then try to pull it through and figure out what the trends were. And if there were a more easier method of doing that, it would be good to know.
Well, I can't tell you how, and Gilbert's about to answer, but right now I just cannot tell you how excited I am about your ask. And I won't go into all the reasons why, but you've triggered some stuff that I know that I'm going to take back to our team as we partner with safety to fully automate so that we can have our safety outcomes illustrated as simply as we did right now with the human performance one. So Gilbert, can you go ahead and maybe try and give us some
I'm looking through my emails real quick just to bring up an example. So just for the sake of time here. So in the email, so right here, this is an email that comes from SWIMS. So SWIMS, we've created reports, right? So in SWIMS, which is our site work management system, there's reports that it'll send you PDF files of like say observations on a daily basis, what have you. But in this case, like this is department clock reset data. So same thing with the team clock reset data. It's an Excel file. So that's when, as soon as I get this in my inbox, this meaning this email, in my inbox, Power Automate is looking for that email. So at 4 p.m., when that email hits my system, that's what triggers Power Automate to do something, right? To go do the next step. So it literally opens up this Excel file. And I'll just open it up. It's empty, but it'll open it up and it does some magic, meaning what it does is what a human would do is change it to a table format, right? So you know how when you go into Excel and you say, take this data, create a table format? Well, Power Automate is doing all that for me. And then it once it's done creating that table format in Excel, then the next workflow kicks in and takes it and dumps it into a SharePoint list. Now that SharePoint list is what's behind the scenes for Power Apps and Power BI. So where a human would actually go in here, as you can see, these are all there's nothing here because we don't have a department clock reset, but there would be data in these fields. A human would have to go in and cut and paste, like that information, and which is what we didn't share with you. We didn't share with you that the efficiency gains that we got from this, because there used to be an individual, her sole job was every Thursday or Friday, whatever day she was designated to, was she had a 10, 15, 20, 30 team clock resets that were from, like as Eric talked about, from our screening committee for our CAP. And then she would go in and plug it in every, one by one into the Power App that I showed you, right? So we're like, no, let's help her grow in a different professional development versus a cut and paste professional, because we don't, there's a lot of human error there, right? So let's use our products to basically do what a human would do and take this data and move it through the life cycle and then into the final destination of now, where the team goes and looks at, okay, what has not been bucketed. Now they just go to one place. We don't even have to have a human involved, high paid professionals, nuclear professionals, to do cut and paste work. We gained, when I looked at the soft savings, it was around $15,000 based on how much time the individual spent throughout the year cutting and pasting and how much time it would take for every evolution. So does that help a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
It does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a lot of manual cutting and paste of stuff, and I just see possibilities of getting some additional help with
Sure.
this.
And in some cases, because of the complexity of that data that you're having, that may be the only solution. At that time, we don't know, right? But in this case, it was very straightforward to where, we could figure this out using products, right? And the product was the cloud services of Power Platform.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You bet. Great question.
Absolutely. Those are some fantastic questions. And unfortunately, we are about out of time. So if you do have more questions, or if something pops in your brain, 5 minutes after the meeting or something like that, please feel free to email it to uswinpd@gmail.com, and I will follow up with you and then Gilberto and Eric afterwards to make sure you are squared away. So with that, I would like to thank the two of you for being our speakers today, sharing everything. Gilberto sharing the demos and whatnot. There's a lot of active questions in there and a lot of good engagement, I think, from the audience. Thank you to Caitlin Urcola for being the webmaster and the host on this. Caitlin's a senior staff council member for NEI and also on the US Wind Steering Committee. I want to thank all of you who took time out of your busy schedules today and all this week, really, for joining everything. As a reminder, there is an on-demand activity on AI, and tomorrow is going to be a spotlight on the PD library. So please feel free to look at those at your leisure. And those resources are always going to be there. It's not like they're just going to be up during PD week or anything like that. A reminder, if you are attending as a group, so please let us know the name of your company or organization, how many folks have attended, by emailing us at the Gmail that is you might need to scroll to the top of it, but it's in the top of the chat. Feedback is a gift. After today's webinar, you should have a survey pop up, please take a few minutes to answer it, because it only helps us to improve our performance. If there are any topics you would like to see considered for future webinars, please also email the PD Gmail, and we will give that our due diligence and consideration for the future. So thank you again so much. And, a big shout out to Tamara Baker. She's provided a lot of really good information to help get this set up, and, help really set this up for success, and helping me along the way as we transitioned over from the chair role when we completed the turnover for that last month. So everyone, thank you again, and have a great rest of your week, and go Vols.
So Eric or Price, can you and Nicole and Tamara stay on for a quick post-job debrief? Eric as well?
Caitlin, is that doable?
That's fine.
Good. Thank you, Price. Thank you, Price, very much for all your hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank y'all.
Okay.
And we could probably turn off the recording and stuff too.
Yes, please.